How you doing? There we go. We got sound. Thanks for coming out tonight. Appreciate it. I hope that you leave here today that this is useful to you and as far as to help you learn how to help your children, because we live in a serious world where they need help. They're going to have to make a stand. They're going to have to make some choices. So they need all the help that you guys can give to them. Let me just start with praying first. Father God, Lord, we thank you for the love that you give to us, Lord. We thank you for the responsibility that you give us as parents, Lord, to walk alongside of these children, to take care of them, to raise them, Lord, to be holy as you are holy. God, I just pray that you will be here tonight, that you will cause our thinking, Lord, to just resonate with everything that we are hearing, that we may learn things, Lord, that will help us to take care of our children, that will help us to prepare our children, Lord, for the challenges that they have ahead of them. God, we thank you for being in this place, and we pray these things in the name of your Son, Jesus Christ. Amen. All righty. So why are we having this class? Because the state of pornography is a crisis in our country, probably around the world. But in our country, we're talking about now. It's getting really bad. The average age of exposure right now is about age 9, and I've heard as young as age 6 as well too. How do we protect our children? The one way we don't protect them is by bright lights. bright lights. You guys are joining us online. Sorry, we're welcome. I'm glad to have you with us as well. We are live streaming this today. So glad. I know there's some of you out there watching, so we appreciate you sitting in with us as well. We protect our children by not assuming that we're going to protect them, that somehow we're going to make their world safe, and we're going to put a bubble around them, and they're never going to be exposed to pornography. That's not going to happen. They're going to be exposed to pornography at some point because you cannot be with them all the time. And they have friends, they have people, they have different circumstances that's going to expose them to pornography. So the way you help them is you say, okay, this is the reality of our world. So how am I going to help my child? Knowing that this is what they're going to face, this is the struggles they're going to do. So that's how we help them going into it, not denying it or not thinking that we can put them in a safe bubble. In a parent's fight to protect their children, step one is education. And that's what you guys are doing here tonight, right? You're getting more education on how you can help your children in the fight that they're going to have as well. So that's a great thing. We're going to start off with a little 5-minute video. It's produced by Covenant Eyes. And the guy's just talking about why we need to do this, kind of what I was just talking about as well. But he's also going to be talking about some different things that we can do as parents to help our children. So we'll start off with that 5-minute video.
After having researched how pornography affects the minds and lives of children, pornographer Martin Darbney, who had since left the industry, wrote, quote, "Like many parents, I fear that my boy's childhood could be taken away by pornography. So we have to fight back. We need to get tech savvy. And as toe-curling as it seems, we are the first generation that will have to talk to our children about porn. We have to tell our kids that pornographic sex is fake and real sex is about love, not lust. By talking to them, they stand a chance. If we stick our heads in the sand, we are only fooling ourselves." I agree with Darbney. We need to talk to our children in an age-appropriate way, to be sure, about what pornography is, why it's a distortion of the goodness of sexuality, and how to avoid it. Now, I'm sure many of you are thinking, I don't want to scandalize my child. And that's good and praiseworthy. We as parents should strive to guard our kids' innocence. But we can't get around the fact that we live in a pornified world that's already rousing their curiosity. I mean, you know as well as I do, you can't even go to the grocery store without having the latest edition of Cosmo assaulting their senses. I spoke with a father recently in Kansas who told me that his 3rd grade son was exposed to rape porn on a friend's tablet at school. I wish I could tell you that this was an anomaly, but it isn't. So it seems to me that we have 2 options. Tell ourselves it'll all be fine, which, as Darbney says, amounts to fooling ourselves. Or we can be proactive and speak to our children about the goodness of their sexuality and why pornography is only a harmful distortion of it. So how do we do this? Well, I first think it's important that this talk not come out of nowhere, right? Rather, we should speak to our children, often in an age-appropriate way, about the sacredness of their bodies, about why they're good, and why it's important that they veil what demands the reverence. When our children begin to understand this, saying something like, if you ever see someone who is showing parts of their body that they shouldn't be, If you ever see someone other than mom or dad or your brothers or sisters who are naked, you should always tell mommy and daddy. Built upon that foundation, it makes a lot of sense. Now, one book I can't recommend highly enough is the book Good Pictures, Bad Pictures, Porn-Proofing Today's Young Kids by Kristen Jensen. It's a great read-aloud book, beautifully illustrated, that offers a plan for preparing your kids for when, not if, when they encounter pornography. The 5-step plan that they suggest can be remembered by an acronym, CAN DO. All right, let's look at them. Number 1, close your eyes as soon as you see something that looks like pornography. Number 2, alert a trusted adult. Tell mommy or daddy or someone who cares for you about what you saw. Remind them that they'll never be in trouble for this. You'd be proud of them for coming to you. Number 3, name it. Teach your child to label what they see. So if they see pornography, teach them to say, that's pornography, okay? Why is this important? Well, the book does a nice job explaining to our kids how our brains work, of course, in a very simple way. When we see pornography, it activates our midbrain, or what the book calls our feeling brain. If we aren't careful, the more we watch pornography, the more our feeling brain begins to take over. Instead, we need to activate our prefrontal cortex, or what the book calls our thinking brain, right away. We need to take the initial thought and feeling we had when we looked at pornography captive. We do this by naming it. That's pornography. This activates our thinking brain, right? Calling it for what it is. Number 4, distract the mind. This is where you, as the parent, come in. Once your child has come to you, distract them. Read aloud to them, sing, or do something with them to get their mind off of it. Number 5, order your child's thinking. It's not enough to distract them, right? But after they come to you or your spouse, you should help them remember why pornography is harmful and affirm that they made a great choice in coming to you. If your child has been looking at porn and you want some helpful advice on what to do next, go to covenanteyes.com and download the free ebook, When Your Child is Looking at Porn.
Excuse me. Jamie Jones is going to walk us through a PowerPoint that's giving us a lot more information about this as well. And Jamie, you want to come up? And after the PowerPoint is over, we're going to do a question and answer time. Neither Jamie nor I are professionals level of understanding everything there is to understand about pornography. So if we don't know the answer to your question, I will certainly find an answer to your question and get back to you with it about it. But she's going to give us a very informative PowerPoint. Thank you, Jamie.
Right, thank you. So as Jeff said, I'm not coming to you tonight as an expert in this field in any way, shape, or form, but Covenant Eyes did put together this really great, informative PowerPoint that I'll be sharing with you. And I wanted to be a part of this at Jeff's asking repeatedly. As a parent and just as a high school teacher, I have teenagers, and well, a teenager now, and see teenagers all day, every day. So I've come to realize just what a humongous subject this is and how necessary it is. So first, we good, Cody? Okay. So our topic tonight is going to be it's going to be equipping our kids to confront this over-sexualized culture. So our agenda is going to be first to talk about the real world, what our kids are facing, what we're facing, what parents need to know and do, and then how we can protect our family so that we have some real practical steps that we can take. It's not all just doom and gloom. So first, let's talk about the real world. First question for you is participatory. These apps are some that may be on your phone. So what apps do you think allow some form of pornography? What do you think? We have the Bible app, Pokemon Go, the Delta app, just to name a few. What do you think? Is that our consensus? Yep, sure enough, all of them. So from here on out, from this point forward, realize, make a note, kind of take a note that almost every single app, regardless of its purpose, will allow some hidden access to Google. And it doesn't obey the iPhone restrictions that you might have put on your child's phone. This, to me, was the one that I was the most kind of like, I don't even have an idea of how this works. But just as an example, in the Bible app, it has click-through access, and that goes to Twitter. Then you can find Google's Twitter page, which has a google.com as a hot link. And from there, you can use the hidden Google search bar to search anything you want. And that's not going to obey those iPhone restrictions. That goes, the same is true, I should say, for Yahoo, for Bing, any of those. And it is going to work on every single Twitter page without ever leaving that Bible app, for example, ecosystem. So any app that can, even if it's convoluted, connect to Twitter can be a porn death trap. So just realize that. Okay. Speaking of online dangers, our next slide brings us to a site called Pornhub. This is just one example of an internet pornography site. I wanted to just mention just a little bit about this in case you have no idea what it's about, and then we'll talk about some issues with their marketing. So it's a Canadian site, and it is the 10th most visited site in the world, not just the United States, in the world. And that really blew me away because there are some countries that have blocked it completely. Places like India, mainland China, Philippines, Pakistan are just a few that have completely blocked access to this site. And if those big players are out and it's still the 10th most visited site in our world, that kind of blows me away. The other thing I found just researching this again for myself is that there were so many complaints from people about this site in showing things like non-consensual sex, sex trafficking, that finally they had to do something about it because MasterCard and Visa blocked their cards from being used on this site. This was just in December. And that blew me away too, because if you think about this is such a popular site, and they are willing to say, we don't want money from this, and it's still that prevalent, again, it just blew me away. So one more thing that blew me away, and then I promise I'll talk about marketing. But after that happened, when MasterCard and Visa pulled the plug for them, they went from having 13 million videos on their site, and they had to take down all of them that showed non-consensual sex and sex trafficking. That brought them from 13 million to 4 million. So this, to me, is when it really started to click in my mind that this is something that is not just a problem that affects a person or even a family, but this genuinely fuels, it creates a demand for sex trafficking and just all forms of abuse. So it is critical that we understand this for protecting our families, but our communities and our world. So that's when I really got on board. But let's talk about the marketing. So that was just a little bit about Pornhub, and again, that's just one of these websites. But their marketing is brilliant, and notice that it's really targeted towards young people. They use symbols like the heart hands, that you see kids and young people doing all the time, to soften and to make their product, if you will, more acceptable, more mainstream. And so we have to understand that they're not playing fair in a way, that they are normalizing the creation, normalizing the consumption of pornography, and it's sinister. Just again, I know it's a little uncomfortable to talk about, but this organization on Arbor Day, who really celebrates Arbor Day? Okay. They know their target audience so well, especially, being young people, that they had campaigns called Give America Wood. Again, I apologize. I know it's not pleasant to talk about. This campaign encouraged people to watch videos on their website, and they said for every 100 videos that people would watch, they would donate one tree. They also had the slogan, while you're watching some nice pieces of ash, like the tree, you'll also be helping to spruce America up. So not only is this brilliant, it's incredibly wicked, obviously, but the thing that, again, I found incredible and incredibly disturbing is, again, they're targeting young people. And I looked into some statistics, and I found that teens and young adults, they view not recycling as more immoral than viewing porn. And so this age group, these groups of kids and young people, they think 56% of them think it's wrong, morally wrong, not to recycle, where only 32% think it's wrong or more immoral to view pornography. They tried previously, they meaning Pornhub, tried to have events to promote breast cancer with equally offensive taglines, and they offered to raise, or to give the money that they raised to Susan G. Komen, which is a breast cancer, organization, thank you. And Susan G. Komen thankfully said, no, we don't want your money, which I appreciate, but still, they decided that wasn't super effective because, again, the demographic don't care about breast cancer, and they objectify the people, so they cared about trees, and that was very successful. The last thing I wanted to say before we move on from marketing is, even with the hit that they took from the Visa and the MasterCard pulling their support, during this coronavirus disease outbreak time, Pornhub, again, stepped in with a brilliant marketing plan and offered Pornhub Premium for free for a time, and that increased worldwide traffic by 18.5%. So this is not a problem that is going away anytime soon. All right, one more question for you guys. So speaking with our statistics, or keeping with our statistics, according to the 2016 Barna study, The Porn Phenomenon, what percentage of girls aged 13 to 24 who periodically attend church seek porn monthly? Not ever, monthly. What do you think?
I know it's going to be 50%, but that's so disturbing. Yeah, I hope it's not 30%.
36. So I was curious, again, this is not really my PowerPoint presentation. I wanted to know the boys. I have a boy. Let's focus on them too. So I looked up this study, and that's where I found the recycling information, by the way, for boys in the same age bracket, so still 13 to 24, in that same spiritual bracket, if you will, who attend church periodically, they are 72% likely to seek out porn monthly. 72% of them are doing that. That was 5 years ago. Exactly. All right, so when we see this kind of an image, notice young kids, toddlers, looking at screens. And we're living at the dawn of such a huge revelation of information, on par with the invention of written language and the invention of the printing press. It's no wonder that only decades into this digital media revolution that we find it hard to get our bearings on exactly how media is impacting our lives, whether for good or for bad. In just 1945, so just a little while ago, there were less than 10,000 TVs in the United States, the whole country, less than 10,000. That number soared to 52 million just 15 years later. That's not even close to current times. Today, the average home has more TVs than it does people. And that's just TVs. That's not including other screens. Literally just TVs. The last 70 years have served as a massive time of transition. We've been shifting from this print-based culture to an image-based culture. It's a shift from the printed word to the digital image. and from the printing press to the computer. This shift to a saturation of images affects everything from how we do politics to how we advertise, how we educate, even more so this year, to how we worship. And again, we see that this year. In a print-based culture, readers process information in a text at their own pace. They're able to work through things. But in an image-based electronic media culture, readers must digest billions of bite-sized images, billions of pictures, painting 1,000 words at breakneck speed. No chance to go through it at their own pace. And it seems that all we can do is react. Our body can not process. It's just not possible to process that quickly. Still living in this dawn of this new culture, it's no wonder that we haven't come to terms with the full impact of what we're living through right now. This also surprised me. Americans, not even just kids, Americans watch an average of 5 hours of TV per day. That's just TV. Despite the prevalence of portable screens, our tablets and our phones and all of those things, TV viewing really hasn't declined. So those things are on top of this 5 hours of TV watching. A 2015 study, so again, a number of years ago at this point, from Common Sense Media, it indicates that teens use an average of 9 hours. 9 hours of entertainment media per day. We're not talking about education. We're not talking about homework and things like that. 9 hours of entertainment media every day. And tweens, those that are 8 to 12 years old, they use an average of 6 hours per day for just entertainment purposes. Of course, not all screen time is created equal. If we're watching things like SpongeBob SquarePants or Flying Kitty videos, that's entirely different than, say, video chatting with grandma across the country. And that's going to be a very different experience. And being creative with media, whether you're making music or making appropriate videos, those kinds of things, that's going to be different. Video editing, blogging, those are very different things. But what we really see is that those things, those creative processes, that's just a fraction, a tiny fraction of what kids are doing on the internet. The vast majority is just passive binging, just watching kind of mindless videos, one right after the other. And we see things like 39% watching TV and shows, movies, listening to music. The rest of the time is usually video chatting, about 26% of the time, or doing things like playing online games is about 25% of that time. And media time in the home, it's one of those things that can be a runaway train. We tend to think, just 5 more minutes, and that quickly becomes 30 more minutes, or just one more show, and then 3 shows later, we're really not, no closer to wrapping it up. So again, it's hard as parents to feel like we can stop this. It feels like a giant. It feels kind of insurmountable when we're trying to set boundaries in an effective way. Next slide, thank you. So again, this is an older slide. We just saw that we're looking at somewhere between 6 and 9, probably even more, honestly, by this point. But teens spend, let's just say, at least, on average, 5 hours a day online. But here's the thing that's possibly surprising to you. Parents of those same kids think that they spend just 2 hours a day online. So reality and beliefs are just nowhere near matching up. And in fact, 71% of kids say that they hide online activity from their parents, and 82% of parents are unaware that kids clear or even can clear portions of their browser history. So there's this huge gap that exists between what kids know about technology and what parents know about technology. I think we're all parents in here. We probably have all experienced this to one degree or another. And sometimes this can lead to inappropriate use, because if kids think, oh, well, my parents won't figure it out, then they can kind of go wild with this. Intentional parenting, though, can leverage these differences. You can begin to ask your kids. You can be curious about what they're seeing on their apps. You can ask open questions like, have you ever witnessed a friend make a bad choice on Snapchat or something like that? So the goal here is to keep that doorway constantly open. We want our kids to feel comfortable talking with us about anything, that no conversation should be shameful or off limits or weird. It might be uncomfortable at first, but you do want them to feel comfortable talking to you at any time. So let's switch gears from reality to what we specifically as parents need to know. First, we want to realize we need to start talking early and often. When we say early, we do mean early, and we'll talk about specifics in a second. We as parents need to stay informed, we need to educate ourselves, we need to protect our home, and we need to protect our devices. So we'll go through each of these briefly. On the next slide, we're going to see some resources. The video mentioned them a little bit. These ebooks, and I think they're also on your handouts. If you didn't, please grab a handout on your way out. These ebooks are available for free. You can download them anytime from Covenant Eyes. Equipped, that first one there, is an overview of how porn impacts your kids and technological and practical steps you can take to protect them before they've ever seen porn of any kind. Confident, that one in the middle, helps you address your child's porn use if you learned that they already are viewing it. Connected, the one on the far side, explores the importance of the strong parent-child relationship and how having that relationship can reduce the temptation for kids to view porn in the first place. So when we're talking early and often, it's important that our tone doesn't convey that we are uncomfortable. Tone is so important when we're talking to our kids. And speaking of talking, don't do all the talking. Let them talk to you and then listen. Really listen to what they're trying to say. Do some discovery, usually by asking open-ended questions. And make sure that your conversations are age appropriate. And in the handout, there's a lot of very specific suggestions which are helpful. Some other references that are great, the good pictures, bad pictures that they mentioned in the video, this also comes as a junior book. This junior book is geared towards 3 to 6-year-olds. So when I say talk early and often, we really do mean early. The middle book is the book that he was specifically talking about, called Good Pictures, Bad Pictures. That is geared towards 6 to 11-year-olds. The image on the right is a book called There's What on My Phone? This is geared towards 11 to 14-year-olds, and it's really to talk to them specifically about things like sexting and phone use. Next slide, we'll talk about some conversation tips. So this age, 2 to 6-year-olds, they are very literal. So limit what they consume. That's going to be the biggest thing, is to just not let them take in more than they can handle as best as you can. Find out what they know, again, by asking questions, doing that discovery. Keep it very simple. Use proper names for body parts. Don't have little cutesy words. Use proper names. Sometimes you might say things like the bathing suit area is private. Not a cutesy name, but something that they can understand and is concrete. For a little bit older, 7 to 12 range, this range is a little bit tricky because we have one end of the spectrum. These kids, they may still have difficulty with what's real, what's pretend, and the older ones, they are very quickly approaching the teen years, and they are facing different challenges. But the older ones, they're developing those abstract thinking skills, they have some real world experience, and they have the ability to express themselves better than their younger counterparts. They're either about to enter puberty or they're already there, and they're starting to act more independently. They may see pornography, whether at school or someplace. They may see violent video games. They may see mass shootings, whether it's something they hear on the news or who knows. They may face bullying. So they have to be able to talk to you without feeling shame or embarrassment about anything. It's not just pornography, but all of these issues. Let's talk about teens next. Teens, you want to challenge them to consider complexities. You know, everything's not so black and white necessarily. Share your values with them. Ask what they would do. Again, by asking questions, you're opening up that conversation that you can have. Encourage that open dialogue. Like they said in the video, you don't want them to ever feel like they would get in trouble for coming to talk to you about something like this. Ask those open-ended questions and admit when you just don't know. And this isn't on the screen, but I do like the picture that they've chosen for this. Like, really think about when you're going to have these conversations. You know, you don't want to do it in a rush when there's lots of people around. Make sure that it's a quiet place where your child feels like they can open up, whether it's a walk down to the creek or sitting at a lake or something like that, so that they really feel like they're not pressured and that people aren't going to overhear and things. Just keep in mind, they're interacting with media independently. They might be reading it, creating it on their own. They might be sharing it online. They often hear about difficult subjects, whether just watching the news media, video games, chats, social media. You might not even know about it. So that open communication is super important. There's a verse here that I want to turn so I can see. For at one time you were darkness, but now you are light in the Lord. Walk as children of light, for the fruit of light is found in all that is good and right and true. And try to discern what is pleasing to the Lord. Take no part in the unfruitful works of darkness, but instead expose them. For it is shameful even to speak of the things that they do in secret. But when anything is exposed by the light, it becomes visible. For anything that becomes visible is light. Therefore it says, awake, O sleeper, and arise from the dead, and Christ will shine on you. So if you'll keep that there just for 1 second. Cody, the thing that really spoke to me the most is where it talks about take no part in the unfruitful works of darkness, but instead expose them. As I was saying before, to me, this is so important because let's say you don't struggle with pornography. Let's say no one that you know personally that you're aware of struggles with pornography. You might think, oh, I don't need to do anything about that, or I might not need to be involved in any way. But just think about even people who watch porn, they might think, oh, well, it's only hurting myself. But again, keep in mind, this is causing the demand for sex trafficking and things like that. So if you even look at it, allow it, in a way, you are participating in it. It's much bigger than just, oh, it doesn't really hurt anybody. That's just not true. All right, so we talked about starting early and talking often about this. As Jeff said, tonight we're taking this step. We're trying to stay informed. We're trying to educate ourselves. So let's talk more about how we can do that. Know that there are websites that you can sign up for their blogs, their newsletters. You can get information from these sites that will keep information that's current and timely. Covenant Eyes, as I mentioned, is the group that put this PowerPoint together and has the resources that we've been talking about. They also, just in case this is something that would be beneficial to you, they have accountability software that's available for $15.99 a month. I don't get any kickbacks. That's designed to help you and those you love live free from pornography. And I don't know all the ins and outs of how it works, but they will help monitor and help keep you accountable so in a way that just you and your people that are with you, your family, know about, that help you stay on track. Let's talk about how we can protect the home next. There are, I'm not even sure the word for this, but there are products, let's say it that way, like clean browsing and OpenDNS that are free, that can be used on most routers, and they will filter certain content. Some routers come with a parental control dashboard. If it does, use it. It can be really helpful. The clean browsing filter, just to give you a little bit of information about that, it does content filtering and security. It will block porn. It will block obscene and adult content while still leaving open access to things like Google, YouTube, Bing, DuckDuckGo. I don't even know what that is. Maybe kids.
It's just like a Google, but it's if they don't search you, it's
Oh, okay.
new
I thought it was some preschool thing maybe, but
It's what everybody should be using, actually.
okay.
Google is actually searching you, is collecting all the information about everything you're searching. So if you go to DuckDuckGo, your
Okay.
privacy.
Awesome. Thank you. And the rest of the web, of course. There are, just so you know, with the clean browsing, there are 3 free filters. Hard to say that fast. 3 free filters. And they do have paid options that allow for some more customization. Let's talk about some more ways you can protect your devices, that last thing. Every family with an Apple device can do this even right now. You should know that there's something called screen time and family sharing. You can access this by texting home to 66866 to get a free email series. It's a series of them with more information. So I was wondering, is there something similar for people who have Android? And there are. So that, Covenant Eyes Screen Accountability, their product does work on Androids as well. And there are also programs called Screen Time that will work for Apple, Amazon, Android devices, whatever you have. You can set time limits, you can approve apps, you can approve app usage, you can look at web history, even if it's being deleted, you can do web filtering, location tracking. They're very, very helpful. So as I just mentioned, the Covenant Eyes screen accountability and filtering is available on most computers, most smartphones, tablets. It works pretty much across the board on these. And again, there are free subscriptions to those as well. So keep in mind, this may seem like a heavy-handed approach, to lock down and protect and filter everything. But keep in mind what Hebrews 12:11 tells us. No discipline seems pleasant at the time, but painful. Later on, however, it produces a harvest of righteousness and peace for those who have been trained by it. So it's exceedingly worthwhile. All right, now we're going to open it up for questions. So Jeff is going to come on back up. Any questions that you guys have?
I'm shocked at what I'm seeing on content restrictions. Like, I had no idea you could do that.
That's wonderful. That now you know.
To do it on the phone? Oh,
Yeah. Like
it works.
you can actually adjust everything to clean. That's amazing. I had no idea, and I'm in cybersecurity. Yeah.
Well, great. Our work is done here then.
Yes, it's all worthwhile for sure.
It's on screen time, yes, but then for each one, you can, it allows you to go, to change it to clean or to change it to, so, my issue is that, and I know what you're going to say already, but
Check.
my daughter's 11, and she is somewhere between, trying to figure out this burst of hormones, and she's totally innocent.
They need to hear you on live stream.
I'm
too.
sorry. So she's 11 and she's got these new hormones and she's totally innocent. And it feels like every time something accidentally gets exposed to her, we go out to dinner with family and someone decides to talk about something totally inappropriate around children. It's like an explosion goes off in her mind and we have to deal with, okay, now she knows what suicide is, and we have to talk about suicide. Or now, what is sex assault? Because someone decided to talk about sex assault in front of our kids. And, which is what you're saying, they're not in a bubble. But if I got a babysitter, because there was no way I was gonna bring my kid to parent porn night and then have to explain to my kid what the heck porn was.
Right.
So you're telling me I gotta go explain to my kid what porn is. She can't take it. Her little brain is, that would be so devastating to her right now, I feel, or to me. It would be devastating to both of us right now.
But that's what these resources that we are commenting about, that's what they do. They are designed to help walk you through it in a way that truly is age appropriate, that's not devastating to anyone. And I have found that once I've been talking to my son about things like that, a lot of times the thought of doing it is often worse than the actual doing it. It's usually a little awkward at first, but then once you are talking to them in an age-appropriate way, it almost does just kind of, they feel more peaceful, talking to you about it.
She'll obsess on it because it'll
Yeah.
be such a dramatic thing.
One thing you can do, that the thicker handout we gave you today when you came in, that's got conversations on there from all different age groups that may help you to have that conversation with them as well. It doesn't make it easier for you. I think like she said, I think the trauma is more on your part, maybe, I don't know, than hers. But the thing that's important is that you don't ignore it or you don't forget about it, because if you do, it's just going to get way worse down the road. So you have to deal with it when it comes up.
And
actually,
honestly, before it comes
yeah,
up.
I'll just say before it comes up.
Yeah. Because if she does learn about it from somebody, with an inappropriate conversation, it's going to be much, much more traumatic for her.
If she learns it from some child at school or something that doesn't
Right,
have
or-
the same morals and whatever.
Exactly. Susie?
Or even learns it from
Hold on just one second, if you would.
We have a live stream, people can hear.
I mean, I think now in our society, even the album of the year with Cardi B, I mean, that's
Absolutely.
pornographic. And that's what's in front of our kids and in mainstream media, so.
we're homeschoolers and we don't do TV, and so, but just the accidental, sorry,
We're homeschoolers and we don't do TV, but they do a lot of Audible, But it's the accidental voiceover trying to find Harry Potter and it finds pot, like something like that is going to happen. And my kids mumble and they're going to search something that we don't want them to search. And actually, Carly, did Carly tell y'all this story already? She won't care that I tell this story. I hope. Her son was on the tablet and brought the tablet over to Chris and was watching hardcore sex. And he got into their Netflix account, and it wasn't a porn. It was just a regular movie that had hardcore sex in it.
Yeah.
And that's what Knox was sitting there watching. For how long, they have no idea. I mean, you can't, that's going to happen to people, So, anyway.
That's just
Sorry,
more of an
Carly.
example why we need to make sure that we are ahead of the game, ahead of the ball on it as well.
Yeah, they really stressed it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. It's going to happen. Our kids are going to be exposed no matter how careful we are. It's going to be something that they face.
And just, I know that we are a lot earlier on in the game than you are, but we had a similar experience having to explain to Emerson for the first time about murder, that there were people in the world that don't care about taking another person's life. So again, earlier on in the game than having to, we haven't had to have that talk with her yet. But we've, tried to take the approach that if they hear about it from us first, we can control the narrative. We can control that first exposure and how that opinion in their mind is formed around that particular topic. It also sets the stage for them to feel more comfortable coming to us when somebody else happens to talk about it or they see it on the TV.
Something similar, kind of piggybacking off what you just said. There was a show on the other day, like a 88.1 FM, great station, everybody. But they had a lady talk about saying her daughter was at a grocery store. And that does not sound like it, but okay. Anyway, so she looked at the magazine and saw the guy that transgendered himself years ago and said, "Mommy, why is that man dressed like a princess?" And she looked at her and she's like, I could just skip this and pretend like ignore it and take her away from it. She's like, "But if she hears it from me and we talk about it, then she's going to understand it, not think it's a norm." And so she told her, she's like, "Honey, sometimes people are confused. They really don't know if they're a boy or a girl. God made him a boy, but he doesn't understand that right now. So we still pray for him." And that was really cool.
It's a really good example.
Absolutely. Anybody else? Cody's getting batteries.
Yep, it's working fine now.
Maybe you just need to take off the bottom.
Good topic, take off the bottom.
There you go. Falls right in line.
Check.
You have a question, Cody? Get the mic.
No, I don't have a question. I was just testing the mic, make sure it works.
All right. Anybody else have any other questions or comments about the whole night or evening so far? The stage squeaks. So, thank you, Jamie, very much. You did
Welcome.
a great job with it.
Thank you.
The battle is real, and I think after tonight you probably have gotten that point across pretty well. The battle's for real, and we have to be consistent and diligent in fighting it if we're going to raise our children to protect them of what's coming. Because it's like some of the examples we heard here tonight. You just can't put a bubble around them and think nothing's ever going to happen, because it won't. You're not with them, and as they start going into school, and especially older and older, you're just not with them all the time. So they have to be able to figure for themselves, I understand what this is, and I need to make choices. And so your job is to make sure they make the right choice when that situation comes. So the way you do that to prepare them is you prepare yourself. And this tonight is part of this, but I hope you don't stop here. We've given you a lot of information, especially what's on those handouts. Jamie's overloaded you with some really good stuff on the thing up there as well. But that website is awesome. They have so much stuff on there that will help in every level, in every role of the family. They'll help you there, and most of their stuff is free. They have some stuff they charge for, but a lot of it is free. It's a great website. I've been working with them and talking to them for this tonight, but also for the service tomorrow as well. The other thing I would like to say is, of course, the handouts. Please take them with you and check them out. One of them is about how to have those conversations. The other one is about, on the back of it, I think it has a list of more resources for you. So we wanted to make sure that you were resource heavy by the time you left here, or knew where you could go to get those things out as well. Another thing that's coming up, an opportunity for you, is April 11th, we're having a 4-week class that's called Your Brain on Porn. And it's for men and women both. It's not personal struggle conversations going on about it. It's about the impact that porn has on your brain. And it's unbelievable what it does. The chemical impact that it has, it definitely makes an impact. It changes your brain and the way we think. So it's teaching about that. It's also teaching about the fact that God's Word has the power to change our mind, to renew our mind. And so it investigates all those biblical scriptures in those areas about how God's Word and the power of His Word can replace what the damage that the porn does in our minds. That we can indeed renew our mind. So it's a 4-week study. It's coming up, like I said, starting April 11th. And you can register online at our website for it now. So guys, I hope this was productive for you, worth your time to coming out. Those of you who joined us online, thanks. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you walk away with this with more information and more resources to start putting your strategy together. Because every family is different. How are you going to protect your children? How are you going to prepare your children? It's not even about you protecting them, because Jamie listed all those things you can do to protect your home, to make your home safe on the PowerPoint. But you have to prepare them for the time when they come face to face with that, and you're not there. And they have to make a choice. And what is that choice going to be? That's our job as parents. God gives us that responsibility to raise our children, not just when it comes to pornography, but everything in their life, to prepare them the best we possibly can. So thanks for coming out. I hope it was worth your time. Thank you, Jamie. You did a great job. So guys, have a good night. Be safe going home. Bye.